Welcome back to Beyond the Curve. I have some great and exciting videos for you today. We're going to take a look at time travel and see if we think it's possible. We're going to look at Project Looking Glass, Project Pegasus. We're going to look at the Chronovisor, which is in the Vatican. And we'll see what we think about that. Hit that like button, share, comment, and subscribe. And let's go.
One of the caveats that I do have some personal information that I did get personally involved in was some information that had to do with the Stargates and Looking Glass, and more specifically the 2012 problem with those projects. The popular opinion of what's out there right now is that the project was shut down because there was a problem when we approached 2012. I've heard it described a number of ways, but to my knowledge, the problem is that the timelines converge on that point in time. And when you know enough about the Stargate projects and the Looking Glass project to know how string theory works and how the possibility of possibilities works and how making one choice over here doesn't necessarily mean that the other choice couldn't exist at the same time. But once you get your brain wrapped around this subject, you find out that at the end of 2012, in an easy way to put it, the choices that we make become less and less consequential to the future. And eventually we're pushed into this bottleneck of time, no matter which choice we make. And that's important to the people that had access to Looking Glass because they would use Looking Glass knowing the choices that they would make and the future would pop up. The big mistake was coming up with the possibility of future. And when we started using a computer to say, well, if we make this choice, it's 79% possible that this scenario happens, and 23% are possible or whatever, round numbers, that this scenario would happen. The understanding at the time was that was realistic. However, if you go down the road further and free will continues to exercise itself on this game, that 79% possibility sometimes changes very, very fast.
There are no documents, no declassified reports, just stories. They call it Project Looking Glass, a rumored black budget program said to explore the nature of time itself, not through psychic visions like Stargate, but through technology, a machine, a device, something that could peer into the future and maybe even shape it.
According to alleged whistleblowers, military insiders, defense contractors, anonymous defectors, Looking Glass was built to model timelines. It allowed the user to input variables, observe outcomes, and analyze branching futures. At first, it was a surveillance tool, but soon it became something else entirely. They began asking bigger questions. Could we avoid a war? Could we change an outcome? Could we override destiny? Descriptions of the machine vary. Some say it resembled a large barrel filled with rotating plasma. Others describe magnetic fields interacting with gravity wells. There were references to ancient Sumerian blueprints, to recovered craft, to lost knowledge from deep beneath the earth.
One whistleblower was Dan Burish, a microbiologist who claimed he worked deep inside a classified facility beneath Area 51.
According to Burish, the device, Looking Glass, used a resonance field to simulate possible futures, But by 2012, something changed. No matter what variables they entered, the outcome stayed the same. A timeline convergence. A point beyond which nothing could be seen. No war, no plan. Just a shift. No matter the inputs, no matter the observer, the timeline always led to the same conclusion. A convergence, a collapse, or an awakening.
Some believe the program was shut down. Others claim it was sealed off and buried. But the real question is, why try to see the future at all? What were they so desperate to know? Remote viewing, timeline manipulation, ancient cataclysms. At first glance, they seem disconnected. Every one of these programs, from Stargate to Looking Glass, wasn't just about spying on enemies. It was about reaching beyond the limits of time and perception. With consciousness, with machines, with knowledge buried beneath centuries of silence, they were chasing control. Because if time can be bent, if ancient civilizations left warnings, if the mind can reach across dimensions, then our history is being managed. My friends, this is about our cosmic continuity, about surviving the next reset before the rest of us even know it's coming.
Changes very, very fast. But if you look at the situation in a point of time, it seems very realistic that that's the greatest possibility. What happened was people, very smart people, began to figure out that something big was coming up. Something that made it so all the possibilities of all the future scenarios of any choice, any possibility that was fed in and observed through the looking glass inherently ended up in the same future. And no decision, no possibility changed past a certain point. That's the big secret. All possible timelines lead to the same basic set of history in the future. That is what sends everybody that has all of the information, that knows everything, into a blind panic. The people that know everything about Looking Glass, that have gotten all the reports and all the information, the elites of the world, probably figured out that that was the end of the game. And nothing.
Maybe they saw the second coming of our Lord, or the rapture or tribulation, and that's why they're building all these bunkers and they're scared to death and they don't know what to do. Maybe it's just my opinion.
Could be manipulated beyond that point. When I was in the military, it would have been before 97 when I got in trouble. One of my particular areas that I was amazingly intuitive about is problem solving / mission planning, or more specifically, taking a bad mission and fixing it. Certainly knowing how string theory and possible futures works makes it so you can work your mind very quickly to see the reality of what's happening and decide what decisions need to be made to change it for a particular outcome. At a certain point, after they're done hearing the computer tell them, this is what's going to happen over and over and over and over again, all they become focused on is, how do we fix it? What I do know is that I was called in and asked to solve this problem, this timeline contraction problem. And I eventually did my due diligence and did all the investigating, and basically only had one piece of information, and that was reinforcement. The computer's right. The timelines will contract down to some inevitable thing. There is an inevitable event. It's been forecast, it's been predicted, it's been fed to us in a slop trough of what they want us to believe will happen. They don't actually have control over what happens. They only have control over the reaction, and it seems that no matter what they try to do to cause their desired reaction, it's going to have an opposite effect. Much, much easier for me to explain today what that process is as opposed to back then. If I had to give it a name, I would say it's the awakening process. It's an evolution of consciousness that cannot, will not, and no matter what decisions or possibilities are injected into the equation, eventually it all resolves down to us all learning the truth and becoming aware of this massive dam of lies that has been built that keep us from knowing massive volume of information that we should otherwise possess.
And that sounds a little crazy or far-fetched for you. Let's check out some clips of news clips of U.S. government officials telling us how they can manipulate time and space.
But we are capable of so much more. Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space.
That's Michael Kratsios, a top White House science official, claiming the United States has technology that can manipulate time and space. Not theory, technology. He made the statement publicly, without hesitation. And if that's even partially true, it changes everything. We're not just talking fast aircraft or advanced artificial intelligence. We're talking about the ability to place forces or systems anywhere on Earth, or beyond, in an instant. Think teleportation level logistics. Weapons deployed before radar even detects a threat. Or battlefield environments reshaped in real time. If America's unveiling this now, imagine what's still classified. How far ahead is the United States compared to the rest of the world? Is this the next generation of warfare? One where time, space, and geography don't matter anymore? Because if they've truly unlocked this, the game isn't just changing, it's already changed.
Did the United States government just admit to having time travel technology? Stay tuned to find out. In a jaw-dropping speech, a top United States official claimed that America has technology that can manipulate time and space. Is this real? Are we talking time travel, warp speed, or something else? Let's break it down and uncover what's really going on, because this could change everything. This wild statement came from Michael Kratsios, the director of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, during the Endless Frontiers Retreat in Texas on April 14, 2025. It was a big event focused on pushing American innovation to stay ahead of the world. Kratsios didn't hold back, saying the United States already has tech that can manipulate time and space and leave distance annihilated. Yes, you heard that right, distance annihilated. Here's the exact quote. Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space. They leave distance annihilated, cause things to grow and improve productivity. He didn't spill the details, but he hinted this could revolutionize life as we know it. So, what's he talking about? Let's dig deeper. Now this sounds like science fiction, right? But it might not be as crazy as it seems. Kratsios could mean breakthroughs in quantum computing, machines so fast they make time feel irrelevant. Or maybe it's artificial intelligence that solves problems in a blink. And don't forget space. The Trump administration's obsessed with it. Back in 2019, they launched the United States Space Force, and with Elon Musk's SpaceX, they're planning to hit Mars by 2030.
That would be Mars beyond the ice walls. There is no such thing as outer space. There's a firmament above your head. There is land beyond the ice walls, though.
Could this be about shrinking distances in space? Maybe even warp speed? Hold up, this has the internet buzzing with conspiracies. One user asked, did he just say the quiet part out loud? Another tied it to Trump's cryptic April 9th comment, we have a weapon that no one has a clue what it is, the most powerful in the world. Are they hiding time machines? Warp drives? The comments are wild, and honestly, it's hard not to wonder. Let's get scientific for a second. Einstein's general relativity, way back in 1915, proved time bends with speed and gravity. Astronauts like Scott Kelly, who spent 520 days on the International Space Station at 17,500 miles per hour, actually aged slower than his twin on Earth. True story. And in 2024, a study in classical and quantum gravity said warp speed might be real, using a warp bubble to bend space-time around a ship. No negative energy needed, just dense matter. So, the science checks out, kind of. If this tech is real, Imagine the possibilities. Travel from Los Angeles to London in seconds. Computers solving climate change overnight. The United States dominating globally with unbeatable.
Climate change ain't real. I didn't know that was in this video. We're moving on.
They say the United States government mastered time travel over 50 years ago and used children as test subjects. In the late 1960s, a secret DARPA program called Project Pegasus allegedly created teleportation chambers powered by Nikola Tesla's stolen blueprints. Whistleblower Andrew Basiago claims he was only 6 years old when he stepped inside one, vanishing from a lab in New Jersey and reappearing at the Gettysburg Address in 1863. He says he's seen the year 2045, walked on Mars, and that the technology was powered by something called a chronovisor, a device that could bend space-time, eerily similar to real physics concepts like wormholes and quantum entanglement. But here's the chilling part. Basiago claims this technology is not only real, it's already being used to preview future wars, influence elections, and quietly rewrite history before it ever happens. If that's true, then our present isn't ours at all. What if the timeline we know is just one version they allowed us to see? How many other realities were erased before they could ever be lived? Follow for more hidden history they don't want you to know.
Difference between the Montauk Project, Project Looking Glass, and this Project Pegasus that you talked about.
Project Pegasus emerged under the aegis of DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, in the late 60s, and encompassed at least 8 different forms of gathering information about past and future events by either propagating a hologram of such an event or physically traveling there. The 2 primary technologies were a teleporter based on the writings of Nikola Tesla and a device called a chronovisor that propagates moving, colored holograms of past and future events. That was the work of 2 Vatican musicologists named Ernetti and Gemelli. It's my opinion that looking glass technology is simply a later technical term for chronovisor. And so I don't think there's any technical or programmatic difference except that the accounts of the looking glass technology don't tell the full story of what Project Pegasus achieved by, let's say, 1970, when it had already developed numerous forms of time travel. In Project Pegasus, we worked with a device that we called the chair, which is clearly the device that the Montauk account identifies as the so-called Montauk chair, which is a magnetic transducer that essentially propels the human mind forward in time-space so that the person sitting in the chair has a kind of an out-of-body experience where they access a subjective moment in their own future. Project Montauk almost certainly was a spin-off of Project Pegasus, and there would be pretty profound reasons for doing that. First of all, I know from my own visits to my own subjective future as a child in Project Pegasus that we were frequently providing valid information when we were traveling forward astrally, as it were, psychically in the Montauk chair. That is to say, the events and episodes that we were apprehending in the chair were frequently what came to pass in the actual future as we lived it, as it unraveled in real time. So there was an accuracy benefit to the Montauk chair. The person's body remained intact, survived their time travel, sitting back in the chair in the laboratory where the person was then sent forward in time psychically or astrally to their own future. So because of the safety factor and the accuracy, I think they probably spun off Project Montauk from Project Pegasus. I don't know why they limited it exclusively to boys, because in Project Pegasus there was an equal number of boys and girls who were time traveling.
Can you tell me the
Looks a bit like the Montauk chair that guy was talking about in the last video.
What if I told you that everything you know about time, history, and reality might be carefully orchestrated? Imagine a world where the United States government has possessed time travel technology since the 1970s, keeping it hidden from public view. This isn't science fiction. This is the story of Project Pegasus. Picture this. While we were celebrating the moon landing and watching Star Wars, secret government facilities were allegedly mastering time travel and teleportation. According to whistleblowers like Andrew Basiago, these weren't just experiments. They were successful operations that fundamentally changed our world. Think about what this means for a moment. If you can access the past and future at will, you can shape every major event in history. Elections, wars, technological breakthroughs, all could be carefully orchestrated performances. The very concept of free will becomes questionable when future presidents can be identified and groomed decades before taking office. But it gets even more mind-bending. The technology supposedly involved isn't just about time travel. We're talking about Tesla-based energy systems that could eliminate our dependence on fossil fuels, and chronovisors capable of viewing different timelines like channels on a cosmic TV. Every system we rely on today, from transportation to energy, could be nothing more than outdated props in an elaborate show. The claims extend beyond Earth. Witnesses describe teleportation facilities on Mars and regular contact with extraterrestrial beings. This suggests we're not just a spacefaring species, we're an interplanetary civilization operating in the shadows while the public remains focused on more mundane concerns. So why maintain this deception? Because controlling time means controlling everything. Those with access to time travel technology could reshape history at will, manipulate global events, and ensure their continued dominance. They could prevent any threats to their power before they even emerge. We're living in what could be called a managed timeline, a carefully edited version of reality where certain technologies, discoveries, and truths are kept hidden. The world we see might be just the surface layer, a controlled environment designed to keep us from discovering our true potential. The implications are staggering. Every historical event, every major decision, every technological breakthrough or lack thereof could be part of a grand design. We might be living in a world where the future isn't just predicted, it's pre-written, pre-approved, and carefully maintained by those with the power to traverse time itself. The question isn't just whether Project Pegasus is real. The question is, if it is real, what does that mean for everything we believe about our past, our future, and our very understanding of reality itself?
To find Dr. John Trump of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Dr. Trump was now retired from the company he founded, High Voltage Engineering, but he agreed to meet me at the company office the next morning.
In the spring of 1943, Dr. Carl T. Compton, who was then president of MIT, asked me to go to New York and examine the effects of Nikola Tesla. These were contained in an upper floor of a warehouse somewhere in New York City. And I spent a good deal of time examining one by one the papers, the books, and various other memorials that he had accumulated. But I was particularly looking for something which would be evidence of a secret weapon, which I was reminded by the agents, the two agents who were present during the entire time, was a matter of concern to the United States. In the course of this, I did come across a number of letters directed at the upper echelon of the British Empire, that is, I think, to the King and Queen, or perhaps just to the King of England, and also to the Tsar of Russia, explaining that he was the inventor of a secret weapon which had rather remarkable properties, and that he would be interested in entering into a negotiation which would lead to a disclosure of what they were.
To have lowered our sights and let systems and structures and bureaucracies muddle us along. But we are capable of so much more. Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space. They leave distance annihilated, cause things to grow, and improve productivity.
The Trump administration just admitted that they can control time and space. You know, the things that create our reality don't seem like too much of a conspiracy no more, does it? But this is about the third time we've been told that it can be controlled. And we just worried about our coffee. Trying to make those rumors about back in the day when they found those time portals sound a little true. You know, the conspiracy of what they actually found when they went to the Middle East. And if you think about it, it'll make things like this make a lot more sense. Which one do you remember? So is deja vu really a glitch in the Matrix? Not only did they say that they can manipulate time and space, but so much more. What's more than time and space? And here I am just waiting on the latest iPhone to come out. But it seems like we turn a blind eye to Google and Microsoft and what they've been doing. It just makes me wonder, how long has this technology been around? In TikTok, this is purely for entertainment purposes. But like and comment and let me know your thoughts.
At the peak of the Cold War, the CIA uncovered a source who claimed to have found an ancient Babylonian artifact capable of generating temporal portals with the ability to see through time. After recovering the crystalline artifact from the Baghdad Museum raid, Project Looking Glass shifted to Phase 2, construction of a temporal aperture device. The Nevada desert was chosen as the home for the device. Under the guise of nuclear weapons testing, we were able to construct the aperture in complete secrecy. 200,000 tons of structural steel were used, along with 212,000 cubic yards of concrete. The crystalline artifact was stabilized with argon gas. Operators were specially trained psych operatives who were given a combination of psychedelic and emotion-suppressive drugs. This was a necessary component in order to activate and operate the device and focus on specific time periods, past or future. December 12, 1979, first test activation. 3 operators exposed to unfiltered timeline data disappeared upon activation. All clinical staff experienced temporal displacement, with some reporting crossing their own timelines. The project was immediately suspended. The device showed us things, probabilities, warnings. In 2012, it revealed something that forced total shutdown. This footage is all that remains.
Happened was people, very smart people, began to figure out that something big was coming up. Something that made it so all the possibilities of all the future scenarios of any choice, any possibility that was fed in and observed through the looking glass inherently ended up in the same future. And no decision, no possibility changed past a certain point. That's the big secret.
Okay, so is that certain point 2012 in your understanding?
It well coincides with December 21st, 2012.
So at that point, all possibilities lead to the same
Timelines.
Rubicon.
All possible timelines lead to the same basic set of history in the future.
And what is that history to you? Did you know that, or did you find that out?
That is the big question. That is the big secret. That is what sends everybody that has all of the information, that knows everything, into a blind panic. The people that know everything about Looking Glass, that have gotten all the reports and all the information, the elites of the world, probably figured out that that was the end of the game. And nothing could be manipulated beyond that point.
So do you think that's held true? In other words, well, I have about 60 questions, but do you think that's true or holding true, that nothing could be manipulated, that they haven't found a way to manipulate, that that's still the case? I mean, this is knowledge that you would have gained back when?
Back when I was in the military, it would have been before 97 when I got in trouble. And it was
The chronovisor was invented by Father Pellegrino Ernetti in the 1950s, an Italian priest who claimed that the device allowed him to see and hear events from the past. Ernetti collaborated with a team of scientists and technicians to build the chronovisor, which allegedly used a complex system of antennas and cathode ray tubes to capture and display historical events. There are claims that it was used to witness the crucifixion of Jesus Christ and the last words of Napoleon Bonaparte. Ernetti's own conflicting accounts of the device's capabilities have cast doubt on its existence. Despite the mystery and skepticism surrounding the chronovisor, its story remains an intriguing part of scientific and technological history. Do you believe the Vatican might be hiding the secret in the shadows? The chronovisor...
Actually, what happens when you go back and you try to change the past, you're in the original event. So the paradox actually is the paradox of retrocausation. Let me use an example. When in 1972, I was sent by Dr. Sterling Colgate and my father from a time lab in East Hanover, New Jersey. The building's still there. It's the brick daycare center at a Presbyterian church on School Road in East Hanover, New Jersey. That was a time lab in the early 70s. I was sent there via a technology called plasma confinement to the day that Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address, which was November 19th of 1863. And I was photographed by a photographer that I think was Matthew Brady. It's disputed. Some people believe it was a photographer assistant of Brady named Bacharach. But it looked like Matthew Brady because I saw him as he was taking the photograph of the citizens of Gettysburg gathering to see President Lincoln give a speech, which was the caption of that famous photograph that I'm in from Gettysburg of that day. But let me just explain how I was using this as an example of how the quantum paradox actually works.
Sure.
Now, if you ponder the fact that I was sent there, photographed in 1863, and then after its discovery in 1951, this photograph has been widely published in news magazines because until 2007, it was the sole surviving photograph of Lincoln at Gettysburg. That begs the question of, did I not exist in the photograph until 1972? Jump there, get photographed, and create another timeline that I returned to where suddenly my image was in all the news magazines that republished the Josephine Cobb image of Lincoln at Gettysburg? Or was I always in all of those photographs? And the latter is the case. Why? This is the paradox of retrocausation. From the perspective of 1863, I arrived as a time traveler from the future, was photographed, and hence my image was always in the photograph. So from the perspective of 1972, I had to go to 1863 to be in the photograph. But if I had flipped through, let's say, that September 1963 edition of the National Geographic that republished the Josephine Cobb image of Lincoln at Gettysburg, I would have seen myself in that image. That is to say that the past is immutable in the sense that when you go back in time to change it, the sine qua non of time travel is that you're in the past event, the original event. So I challenge the notion of Schrodinger's cat and the notion of a second timeline breaking off, because when you go back to that past event, you're in the original event. The notion of a second timeline branching off, I think, is a form of magical thinking. But I would distinguish that concept from the idea of being sent to a different timeline. For example, we found that the chronovisors were unreliable as an intelligence-gathering device, an intelligence-gathering time machine, because every time they sent us to quote-unquote the same past event, it was always a slightly different version of that same past event.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so for example, when I would pop into view in front of Ford's Theater and try to talk myself past the ticket table in the front of the lobby, right inside the door, as a society child dressed in my Sunday best, and try to convince them that my parents had already been admitted with my ticket and were sitting inside, the person who would greet me at the ticket table was always a different person. It was like a man and his son. Then it was the man by himself on the second jump. On the third jump, let's say it was just his son. Then it was his son and his brother.
So is that you, in effect, creating a small paradox?
Well, I don't think we should think of the disparate timelines as paradoxical per se. I think we should think instead of the fact
Yes, but you've got change. You've got
Well,
change.
according to one estimate, the multiverse contains as many timelines as would be expressed numerically by a number at 12-point type that would stretch for 130 million miles.
1.21 gigawatts! 1.21 gigawatts! My God! What the hell is a gigawatt?
Well, those are the videos I had for you today. I hope you enjoyed the rabbit hole, time travel, time and space manipulation. A lot of different projects out there the government's been working on it a very long time. They have all kinds of technology we can only dream about. By the time we get it, it's old news, real old news. I got to figure they're at least 100 years ahead of what we think they're, what they are. But I mean, who really knows? But you know, we do know the heavens outside of time and space, and the devil's outside time and space. And so, if there's a way to mess with it, I'm sure they've figured it out. But anyhow, please like, share, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.